Some songs don't just support a movie, they escape it. Long after the credits fade, they're still blasting in cars, stadiums, and headphones around the world. A power ballad turns Aerosmith into chart toppers. A raw anthem earns Eminem an Oscar he didn't even show up for. And one iconic track by Queen finds a second life years after its release. These aren't just soundtracks, they're cultural takeovers. In this video, we're counting down 10 songs so powerful, so timeless they didn't need the movies at all, and somehow became even bigger than the films that introduced them. At number 10, Footloose, Kenny Loggins, from Footloose, 1984. In 1984, Hollywood released a movie about a small town that banned dancing. What survived wasn't the story, it was the song. The second those opening drums hit, Footloose exploded like pure American adrenaline. Suddenly, Kenny Loggins wasn't just a soft rock singer anymore. He became the unofficial king of the movie soundtrack era, and ironically, the song became far more legendary than the film attached to it. The movie Footloose was successful in its time, but decades later, most people remember only fragments of the plot. A rebellious teenager, a town obsessed with rules, Kevin Bacon dancing in a warehouse. But the song? That never left. Footloose became a permanent part of weddings, sports arenas, school dances, karaoke nights, and retro playlists. It reached number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and helped define the entire sound of 1980s pop culture. Even people who have never seen the movie instantly recognize that chorus. And that's what makes the soundtrack entry fascinating, because Footloose doesn't feel tied to a movie anymore. It escaped the movie. The song became bigger than the characters, bigger than the script, bigger than the story Hollywood originally sold. Today, Footloose isn't remembered as a soundtrack single. It's remembered as an anthem. And somewhere along the way, the film became the thing promoting the song, not the other way around. Number 9. Against All Odds, Take a Look at Me Now, Phil Collins.
So take a look at me now.
From Against All Odds, 1984. Sometimes a movie disappears with time, but the heartbreak attached to its soundtrack becomes immortal. That's exactly what happened with Against All Odds. In 1984, the romantic thriller Against All Odds arrived in theaters with stars, style, and big studio expectations. The film performed reasonably well, but over the decades, it slowly faded into the background of 80s cinema. The song didn't.
Take a look at me now.
The moment Phil Collins begins singing, the entire atmosphere changes. No explosive chorus, no dramatic guitar solo, just loneliness, regret, and a voice that sounds completely defeated. Take a look at me now. It felt painfully real. At the time, Collins was going through the emotional collapse of his first marriage, and audiences could hear it. That raw vulnerability turned the song into something far more powerful than a standard movie ballad. It became personal. Against All Odds reached number 1 in the United States and earned nominations for both the Academy Awards and the Golden Globes. But strangely, despite becoming one of the defining ballads of the decade, it lost the Oscar for Best Original Song. The movie itself is now mostly remembered by film fans and collectors of 80s thrillers. But the song survived everywhere. Radio stations kept playing it. Artists kept covering it. Broken hearts kept returning to it. And that's the strange magic of soundtrack history. Sometimes audiences don't remember the scenes. They remember the feeling. Today, millions of people know every word to Against All Odds without ever watching the movie it came from, because the film told a story, but the song told the truth. Number 8. Old Time Rock and Roll, Old Time Rock and Roll, Bob Seger. Featured in Risky Business, 1983, there are scenes in movie history people never forget. And then there's Tom Cruise sliding across a hardwood floor in socks. That moment turned old-time rock and roll into something bigger than a song. It became a cultural reflex. Ironically, Bob Seger almost wanted nothing to do with it. Released in 1978. Old-time rock and roll was already a modest hit before Risky Business used it 5 years later. Seger himself reportedly disliked parts of the songwriting process so much that he refused to take full writing credit. But Hollywood changed everything. When audiences saw a young Tom Cruise dancing alone in a dress shirt and underwear. The scene exploded into pop culture mythology almost overnight. Suddenly, the song wasn't just classic rock anymore. It became cinematic shorthand for freedom, rebellion, and reckless teenage confidence. And unlike many soundtrack moments that fade with time, this one only grew larger. People recreated it at parties. TV shows parodied it. Commercials copied it. Entire generations who had never heard a full Bob Seger album still knew that piano intro instantly. Meanwhile, the actual plot of Risky Business became less important than the image attached to the song. That's the strange part. The soundtrack moment overshadowed the movie itself. Today, many people remember the dance scene more clearly than the story surrounding it. Some even assume old-time rock and roll was written specifically for the film. It wasn't. The movie borrowed the song, but history eventually gave the song ownership of the movie. And decades later, one pair of socks still keeps the entire soundtrack alive. Number 7. Flashdance. What a Feeling. Irene Cara. From Flashdance, 1983. Before the montage became a cliché, this song defined it. In 1983, Flashdance told a simple, almost fragile story about ambition. A steelworker by day, a dancer by night, chasing something bigger than her circumstances. The film connected with audiences. But the song? It transcended them. From the first synth pulse, Flashdance. What a Feeling feels like pure momentum. Then Irene Cara enters, not just singing, but pushing the emotion forward like a heartbeat you can't slow down. Take your passion and make it happen. It wasn't just a lyric. It became a mantra. The track shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and won the Academy Award for Best Original Song, suddenly. It wasn't just attached to a movie, it became the emotional engine of an entire era of 80s aspiration. And here's the twist. While Flashdance is still remembered, much of its legacy is carried by its music and iconic visuals. The audition scene, the water splash, the training montages. Strip away the song, and the film loses its pulse. But the song? It survives perfectly on its own. It plays in gyms, in motivational videos, in throwback playlists that have nothing to do with the movie anymore. People who've never watched Flashdance still feel like they know exactly what it stands for. Because the song didn't just support the story, it became the story. And in the end, What a Feeling didn't just soundtrack a dream. It turned that dream into something people could carry with them, long after the credits faded. Number 6. Blaze of Glory. Blaze of Glory. John Bon Jovi. From Young Guns 2, 1990. This one wasn't just a soundtrack song. It was a complete takeover. In 1990, Young Guns 2 tried to revive the myth of Billy the Kid. Guns. Dust, outlaws, and legend. It had energy, it had style, but it didn't have something timeless. Then John Bon Jovi stepped in. Originally, the studio asked him to use his band's hit, Wanted Dead or Alive. He refused. Instead, he wrote something new, something darker, more personal and far more cinematic. Blaze of Glory wasn't just about an outlaw. It felt like one. With acoustic guitars, haunting imagery, and lyrics about fate, faith, and dying young. The song carried emotional weight the film struggled to sustain. Bon Jovi didn't just match the movie's tone, he elevated it beyond what was on screen. The result? A massive hit. The song reached number 8, won on the Billboard Hot 100 and earned nominations at both the Academy Awards and the Golden Globes. For a moment, it seemed like the film and the song were rising together, but time had other plans. Decades later, Blaze of Glory still plays on classic rock radio, still echoes through playlists about rebellion and legacy. Meanwhile, Young Guns 2 has become more of a footnote, a sequel remembered mainly by fans of the genre. And that's the shift. The song didn't just outlast the movie. It redefined it. Today, when people hear Blaze of Glory, they don't think about specific scenes or dialogue. They think about the feeling of standing alone, facing the end and choosing how your story is remembered. The film told a legend. The song made you believe it. Number 5. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing, Aerosmith. From Armageddon, 1998. It's one of the biggest songs of the 90s, and it didn't even start with the band who made it famous. In 1998, Armageddon arrived with explosions, asteroids, and blockbuster ambition. Directed by Michael Bay, it was loud, emotional, and unapologetically over the top. But buried inside all that chaos was a ballad that would outlive everything. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing wasn't written by Aerosmith. It was written by Diane Warren, one of the most successful songwriters in pop history. At first, the band reportedly hesitated. It didn't sound like their usual hard rock identity. Then they recorded it anyway. And everything changed. The song became Aerosmith's first and only #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 after more than 2 decades of success. That alone is almost unbelievable, but the deeper story is even more ironic. The film itself became known for its spectacle, the drilling mission, the slow-motion sacrifices, the emotional farewell between father and daughter. Yet over time, many critics dismissed it as excessive, even absurd. The song didn't suffer that fate. It became timeless, played at weddings, remembered in emotional moments, covered across generations. I Don't Want to Miss a Thing detached itself from the asteroid, the mission, and even the film's plot. People don't need the movie to feel it. Because the song isn't really about space, it's about holding on to a moment you know will end. And somewhere along the way, that feeling became far more powerful than the story that introduced it. Number 4. Unchained Melody, The Righteous Brothers. Featured in Ghost, 1990. This song wasn't new, not even close. Unchained Melody was first recorded in the 1950s, written for a prison film long before most modern audiences ever heard it. Over the years, it had been covered multiple times. Then 1990 happened, and everything changed. When Ghost hit theaters, it told a supernatural love story, loss, memory, and a connection that refused to disappear. The film was a massive success, blending romance and the afterlife in a way audiences didn't expect. But one scene rewrote the song's destiny. Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore, sitting together at a pottery wheel, silence, touch, and then that voice. Oh, my love. In that moment, Unchained Melody, specifically the version by the Righteous Brothers, was reborn. The song surged back onto the charts decades after its original release. Radio stations revived it. A new generation claimed it as their own. For many listeners, it didn't feel like an old song anymore. It felt timeless. And here's the twist. Unlike other entries on this list, the movie Ghost is still widely loved and remembered. It hasn't disappeared. But the song? It became the film's emotional core. Ask people what they remember most, and many won't describe the plot. They'll describe the feeling of that scene, and the music that carried it. Unchained Melody didn't just survive the movie, it defined it. And decades later, long after the details fade, the melody still does exactly what the title promises. It refuses to be held down. It stays with you, unchained. Number 3. Eye of the Tiger, Survivor. From Rocky III, 1982. Some songs don't just support a movie, they replace it. In 1982, Rocky III needed a new identity. Sylvester Stallone wanted something sharper, more aggressive, and anthem that could carry the evolution of Rocky from underdog to champion under pressure. So he reached out to Survivor. What they delivered wasn't just a theme song. It was a cultural weapon. From the very first guitar riff, Eye of the Tiger feels like motion, like running, training, fighting, surviving. The rhythm is relentless, the hook is immediate, and the message is unmistakable. Get up or get left behind. The song shot to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and became one of the most recognizable tracks of the decade. But here's where it gets interesting. While Rocky as a franchise is legendary, Rocky III itself is often ranked below the original film in terms of critical respect. It's bigger, louder, more commercial. The song embraced that and then outgrew it. Because Eye of the Tiger didn't stay inside the movie. It escaped into real life. Gyms adopted it. Athletes used it. Every underdog story, from local races to global competitions, borrowed its energy. Decades later, people who have never watched Rocky III still know exactly when to clap. When to run, when to push harder, just from hearing that riff. That's the shift. The film needed the song to elevate its impact, but the song never needed the film to survive. Today, Eye of the Tiger isn't just tied to Rocky. It's tied to every moment someone refuses to quit. And in that sense, it became bigger than any single story Hollywood could tell. 2. Lose Yourself, Eminem, from 8 Mile 2002. This wasn't supposed to be just a soundtrack song. This was a statement. In 2002, 8 Mile arrived as a semi-autobiographical film about struggle, identity, and survival in Detroit. It was raw, grounded, and unexpectedly powerful. Critics respected it. Audiences connected with it. But even inside a strong film, one moment stood above everything. Lose Yourself. Written and recorded by Eminem during the production of the movie, the track feels like pure urgency. There's no wasted space, no soft entry, just tension building from the first note. Look, if you had one shot, that opening line didn't just start a song. It triggered something universal. The pressure, the fear, the once-in-a-lifetime chance. And then the beat drops and everything locks in. Lose Yourself became the first hip-hop song ever to win the Academy Award for Best Original Song, a historic moment. But in true Eminem fashion, he wasn't even there to accept it. He was at home, asleep. Because no one thought a rap song would actually win. That irony only added to the myth. The track dominated charts worldwide, became a global anthem, and transcended the movie almost instantly. It wasn't just tied to 8 Mile anymore. It became a mindset. Athletes used it before games. Students played it before exams. Creators, performers, fighters, anyone facing pressure found themselves inside that song. And here's the key difference. Unlike many entries on this list, 8 Mile is still respected. It didn't fade away. But Lose Yourself grew beyond it at an entirely different scale. Because the film tells one man's story. The song makes it feel like your story. And decades later, long after the final rap battle ends, people still return to that same question. What would you do? If you only had one shot? That's why Lose Yourself didn't just outlive its movie. It outgrew it. Number 1. Bohemian Rhapsody. Queen. Featured in Wayne's World, 1992. This song didn't just outlive its movie. It had already outlived everything. Released in 1975, Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen was a risk no one in the industry fully understood. 6 minutes long, no chorus, shifting between opera, rock, and ballad like a controlled explosion. It became a global hit. And then, like many songs, it slowly settled into classic status. Then 1992 happened, and a comedy changed everything. In Wayne's World, a group of friends sit in a car and press play. What follows is chaotic, ridiculous, and completely unforgettable headbanging, in perfect sync to a song most radio programmers once thought was too strange to succeed. That scene didn't just bring the song back, it reintroduced it. Bohemian Rhapsody shot back up the charts, reaching number 2 in the US nearly 2 decades after its original release. A new generation discovered it, not as a relic, but as something alive, unpredictable and powerful. And suddenly the balance shifted. Because while Wayne's World became a cult classic, its most iconic moment is inseparable from the song it borrowed. Take away that scene, and the film loses a piece of its identity. But take away the film? Bohemian Rhapsody loses nothing. That's what makes this entry different from every other song on this list. The movie didn't create the hit. It amplified a masterpiece. And in doing so, it proved something rare. Great songs don't just survive time, they wait. They wait for the right moment, the right audience, the right spark to remind the world how powerful they've always been. Bohemian Rhapsody didn't need the movie, but the movie needed it. And decades later, we're still pressing play,